sound very good. Sounded sick. I know that feeling. But he didn't look good. He didn't look like he was sounding good. It's toll on him too.
Well, the word tired's in every phrase right now.
Yeah.
You know?
It just you look at him, I listen to a lot of it post game to cut the clips to the show or whatever, and you just watch him there. That's a man that's needs a break. Like I really do feel like this
He's right
team-
there with
I
the
do.
rest of them.
Yeah, like
And
coaching here is different than coaching in St. Louis or Philadelphia. Like it's a,
handling the off ice stuff,
Oh my
and then
God.
the demands
Yes.
of like turning down our show when we ask him to come on it takes a lot of energy,
yes.
right?
Well, we on one of the other stations. We will talk later about the Devils' win over the Rangers. So Jack Hughes gets interviewed on the ice. He gets interviewed like post game. Then they show his scrum, but it's New Jersey. It doesn't matter. It's like he's at junior high. Like it's no big deal. You know what I mean? They're just kind of hey, I'm just gonna chat some more, right? We're here. It's like it's like the prime minister or president or state of the nation type thing when you're the coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs and you face the media compared to like Jack Hughes. Jack Hughes' excellent verbal adventure post game.
Okay, you're like chomping to talk about Willie Nylander's almost 5-minute shift.
Yeah,
What was it?
4:57 or something like that.
4:55.
4:55 officially.
Speaking of Jack Hughes, according to the broadcast, he has the longest shift in NHL history at just over 6.
Well, everybody
Kovalev.
reverts to the Kovalev shift.
Were you on the bench?
I
for
was
that?
on the bench. Yes.
Were
And
you up next?
I don't know.
That's why he kept going.
I don't know how long it was, but it was longer than Willie's, and it was longer than
6?
Hughes.
Yeah.
And the only thing I really truly remember is every time he tried to change, and Keenan would say, "Stay out there," he thought he was being rewarded. And we're all sitting there going, he still doesn't get it, does he? And took a while,
Yeah.
like till April.
So-
And then eventually it kicked in, I think.
Because he's one of those guys that always took long shifts.
Long
So
shift.
this was Mike Keenan was making a point.
He was making a
And
point.
I don't care what, like, if you're a parent watching your kid play, you get pissed that Kipper's kid never comes off and Justin's up next, right? You know, just all that. And then in the NHL, same kind of thing. Let's face it, certain players earn more ice time, more opportunity. That goes with the territory. But so explain today, like, first of all, what's a power play? It was a 4-minute power play. And Berube kind of says he knows he could stay out there. He did say for a 2-minute power play for all of it if things are going well. There obviously was a chance or two to change. And I don't know who was up next, but you can't be too happy if you're up next and a player decides, I'm better tired for 2 more minutes than next player fresh.
Yeah, I didn't like Craig Berube's post game response to that shift. I didn't like it because it gives him the green light. It empowers him to stay out there as long as he wants. And there's no world that we live in today compared to 20 years ago to 40 years ago. There's no hockey world, where a 4:45 shift is acceptable. Like, we're taught at a very young age that the number is somewhere between 40 seconds and a minute and a half. And then now between Craig and Willie, they get to rewrite the whole hockey shift world by saying he can stay out there as long as he likes. And it's just, in my world, there's just no way that can be acceptable for 21 other guys.
What goes hand in hand with what we're talking about right now about the team, about the details and the lack of focus, the lack of whatever. That's another part. Part of it is about just like what percentage could you be going at to be out there for 4:55?
It's such a separation between you and your team.
Team A, Team B.
Right? No, it's worse than Team A and Team B. It's Team A and Team Z.
Yeah. Yeah.
We already know, okay, me, fourth line slug, checkers. We already know that there's different rules for Willie, Mitch, Austin, and all the stars. We get that. But to the point where you get to stay out as long as you want, and then to your point, it's the domino effect of the next guy up or the next guy after that. And how long before you need to recover to get back a rhythm? Because the game is a rhythm. changing is a rhythm. What lines up next is a rhythm. You just derail everything when you got a guy out there that long. And like it's not good. It's not good for team morale. It's not good for the next man up. It's not good for the next man up after that. It's just it derails everything.
So I would have to think, and Craig Berube just said, I got to take a look at it, right? Because probably while it's going on, you can't remember every single thing that happened. But again, when we talk about those kind of details that make a difference in the playoffs, much like, not being asleep when David Pastrnak gets that opportunity in Game 7 overtime, whatever the kind of detail things are that you have to, that's another one. Because to your point, in the playoffs, you got to be given it, and the line changes have to be crisp, and they got to keep coming at them, and you got to get that kind of flow. Mm-hmm. And then, as you mentioned, and not just regular season too as well. I don't mean to keep harping on the playoffs, but just good habits. That, to your point, you've messed the whole rhythm up. You've messed the lines up. There's an unevenness, and to get back to where you want to do that, you feel like you're in the flow. You're making some very unnecessary adjustments.
So instead of having him say, "Oh, we're gonna have to look at it," you and I would, and you, Gordo, probably would rather him just say, "Hey, I have to look at it, but I don't think there's any world where any guy should have a 4-minute and 55-second shift."
That's all it takes.
Yeah.
It's like it's like, too much.
It's crazy.
And we need to fix it, and I need to look at it and see where it went wrong, and that can't happen again.
Bingo.
Over.
I don't, and I don't know how he would ever look this up, but him doing the 2-minute power play, since he's done that, how many times has he scored in the second half of the power play? Like, I don't understand why he needs to play the full 2.
You got to kind of explain it, is that earlier in the season, we all know that Willie had a concern about his ice time, right?
I guess that's why he took a 455.
They want to make Willie happy, and it's like Willie doesn't kill penalties.
Yeah.
So, Willie, we're going to take the minutes that a penalty killer would take, and we're going to add it to you for the second half of the power play. And that's where it originated.
Because they've given Austin some PK time, and of course Mitch is an excellent penalty killer. So in Willie's case, the other part is if you are still applying pressure, that's the thing. Like if the power plays, if it's going 2 minutes long, and and you can read versus saying, I'm entitled to stay out of here 2 minutes. So even though the puck gets iced with a minute 40 into it, I'm not going to peel off. I'm going to take the net. Then that's where, and maybe this will be a healthy discussion, because Berube was he didn't have a problem saying, I thought Joe Walsh should have moved quicker, which we did too. But then we looked at, he really didn't see the rebound, like the one that looks like he can't move it all. And you realize he actually reacted late. He didn't really know where the puck was. So I've liked that Berube in a constructive way can do that about individual players, whether you want to calling them out or what have you. Could do that. But yeah, he kind of did kid gloves on Willie with that one.
The other thing,
he's also, in Willie's defense, he's second in the league in goals, right? It's like, you have to have some give and take when you're being critical, but I would have liked it there.
The other one on ice time and length of shifts too is end a game. So in our world, when we were with Hockey Clubs, Gord, the standard was that you'd pull a goalie with about a minute and a half, right? Or even under a minute.
Yeah.
30 seconds, 40 seconds, we'd see the goalie leave. And then you'd have your best players out there for one last push. You score the goal to tie it up, great. They score an empty netter, you're off the ice, the game's over, and then you quietly fade to the sunset.
Fade to black.
You fade to black. Now, they pull goalies with anywhere between 5 minutes and 0.
Saturday night, they were out there for 5 minutes.
So here we are now. You're putting out your best players, not with under a minute, but under 5. And somehow, some way, they feel compelled to stay out there for the whole 5.
I know.
Like, I don't know if you saw John Tavares at the end of it, but he had, I don't know what the number was, but that guy wouldn't come off the ice either. And they're all like, tongues are dragging. And if once again, if I'm like one of 15 guys on the bench and I'm watching you suck air, but you won't come off the ice, I'm sitting there, what am I doing?
Well, that's why there's so many empty net goals. So it's negating the whole point about trying with the extra. So you're getting the extra attacker, but then you're tired. So whatever. So that you're saying on the bench, look, I'll go 40 seconds. I'll go full bore. I'll go right in and try to get the puck, whatever, which they can't do now because they're almost entering their third minute out there. So yeah, you're like, first, I'd like to go back to just pulling the goaltender a lot later in the game. I know Patrick Waugh did it, then Bruce Boudreau did it, and there was that kind of success for a while coming back from 2 goals down, but that really has not happened by and large of late. And
it's an analytics play, right? Where
It
it's
is
like
an analytics play.
it's like the result
Yeah.
ultimately doesn't matter, so you might as well.
But like, we're seeing guys.
Leafs facing center crisis amid injuries, eyeing trade market for solutions. As the Toronto Maple Leafs battle through a growing injury list and a suspension, their lack of depth at the center position has become a glaring issue. According to Sportsnet's Elliot Friedman in his latest 32 Thoughts article, the Leafs are among the teams exploring trade options to bolster their lineup. This effort is coming amid increasing competition from teams like the Chicago Blackhawks and Nashville Predators, who have also set their sights on improving their center depth. Friedman didn't mince words about the Leafs' predicament. The teams currently focusing on centers, including Chicago and Nashville, must consider when others will enter the market. Toronto will undoubtedly be one of those teams, he wrote. While the Blackhawks and Predators may have an edge in terms of cap space and assets, the Leafs remain a team to watch as the season progresses. The Leafs situation is urgent, with up to 7 forwards currently unavailable due to injury or suspension. Ryan Reeves is serving a 5-game suspension, while key players like Austin Matthews, upper body, Matthew Knies, upper body, Kaye Jarnkrok, groin/sports hernia, David Kampf, lower body, Max Domi, lower body, and Max Pacioretty, lower body, are all sidelined. The team has even considered temporarily shifting Mitch Marner to the center position, highlighting the severity of their depth issues. This isn't just a short-term concern for the Leafs. Depth at center has been a persistent challenge for the team, and while stopgap solutions like Marner could help in the interim, the front office appears keen to explore longer-term fixes. For fans of the blue and white, this has been a recurring theme. The Leafs' center depth often becomes a problem at the worst possible times. James Myrtle of The Athletic recently added more fuel to the speculation, naming several potential trade targets who could help the Leafs address their issues. Among them is Ryan O'Reilly, a familiar name for Toronto fans. O'Reilly, who signed a 4-year, $18 million deal with Nashville in 2023, might be a trade candidate if the Predators' underwhelming start to the season, 6-11-3, 31st in the league, prompts a rebuild. However, his steep price tag and history with the Leafs, including rejecting a free agency offer less than 2 years ago, make this a complex and potentially unlikely move. Other names mentioned by Myrtle include former Leaf Nazem Kadri, currently with Calgary, as well as players like Michael Granlund, Nick Jugstad, Brock Nelson, Yanni Gourde, Trent Frederick, Radek Faksa, and Sean Kuraly. While some of these options seem more plausible than others, it's clear that general manager Brad Treliving will need to get creative to find the right piece without mortgaging the team's future. Cap space remains one of the biggest obstacles for the Leafs. Unlike teams like Chicago and Nashville, which have more flexibility and assets, Toronto is walking a financial tightrope. As Friedman noted, competition will intensify as cap-constrained teams strive to create room. For the Leafs, that could mean waiting for the market to develop further, a risky move given their current needs. The situation also highlights the Leafs' ongoing struggle to build a roster that can withstand the grueling nature of an NHL season. Injuries are an inevitability in hockey, but Toronto's current predicament underscores the importance of depth, a quality the team has struggled to consistently maintain. Looking back on recent years, the Leafs have often leaned heavily on their star players, particularly Matthews, Marner, and William Nylander. While these players have delivered in spades, the lack of reliable depth options has left the team vulnerable in critical moments. The current crisis at center is merely the latest example of this recurring issue. Some fans have called for more aggressive moves from Treliving, arguing that now is the time to strike while the team's core is in its prime. Others, however, are more cautious, pointing to the dangers of overpaying for short-term fixes. Striking the right balance will be key, especially as the Leafs aim to keep their championship window open. Despite the challenges, there's no denying that Toronto has the talent to be a contender, provided they can patch up their lineup. The ongoing rumors and speculation surrounding potential trades show that the Leafs are at least exploring every avenue to strengthen their roster. For fans of the blue and white, this moment feels like a pivotal point in the season. With a lineup ravaged by injuries and a tough schedule ahead, the Leafs must act decisively to avoid falling behind in the standings. The addition of a dependable center could be the difference between weathering the storm or watching another season slip away. Whether it's O'Reilly, Kadri, or another surprise name, one thing is certain: the Leafs are under pressure to deliver. And for a fan base as passionate and loyal as Toronto's, there's no room for excuses. The time to act is now, and Leafs Nation is watching closely. As the trade deadline approaches, the stakes couldn't be higher. Will Treliving pull off a move that solidifies the Leafs' status as a contender, or will the search for center depth become yet another chapter in the team's long history of what-ifs? Only time will tell, but one thing's for sure: it's never boring in Leafs land. As the Maple Leafs navigate this critical juncture, their fan base remains as vocal as ever. Toronto is a city that breathes hockey, and the pressure on Brad Treliving to make the right moves is immense. Every decision he makes, or doesn't make, will be scrutinized, from talk radio to social media, where Leafs Nation is already debating the merits of the various names being floated as potential trade targets. Among the louder debates is whether the team should prioritize a high-profile acquisition like Ryan O'Reilly or Nazem Kadri, or focus on a lower-cost, reliable center who can fill a supporting role without costing too many future assets. While O'Reilly's leadership and playoff experience make him an attractive option, his contract and recent history with the Leafs add layers of complexity to any potential reunion. Similarly, Kadri's gritty, two-way playstyle remains a fan favorite, but his cap hit and availability might render him an unrealistic target. Another factor complicating the Leafs situation is their tight salary cap. While Chicago and Nashville can make moves with relative ease due to their financial flexibility, Toronto must navigate a labyrinth of constraints to make any trade work. This likely means including salary retention or moving existing contracts to make room, which could drive up the cost of any potential deal. The question then becomes: how much are the Leafs willing to sacrifice to address their immediate needs? One potential trade partner generating buzz is the Seattle Kraken. Yanni Gourde, a dependable two-way center, has been mentioned as a possible target. Gourde's versatility and championship pedigree from his time with Tampa Bay make him an appealing option. Seattle, however, is in playoff contention and may not be inclined to part with a key piece unless the Leafs can provide a substantial return. Another intriguing name is Brock Nelson of the New York Islanders. Nelson is a consistent scorer and reliable faceoffman, qualities that would undoubtedly bolster Toronto's center depth. However, the Islanders are notoriously cautious when it comes to trades, and prying Nelson away would likely require a significant package, including picks or prospects that the Leafs may be hesitant to part with. For all the trade talk, some analysts believe the solution might come from within. Sheldon Keefe has shown a willingness to experiment with his lineup, and players like Pontus Holmberg or Fraser Minton could be given an opportunity to step up. While relying on less experienced players carries risks, it might be the Leafs' only option if the trade market proves too costly or slow to develop. Adding to the Leafs' urgency is the timing. The Atlantic Division remains one of the toughest in the league, with teams like Boston, Florida, and Tampa Bay continuing to dominate. Any prolonged slump could see Toronto slip further down the standings, putting their playoff hopes in jeopardy. For a team with Stanley Cup aspirations, failing to address their weaknesses could have catastrophic consequences. Brad Treliving's history as a general manager suggests he's not afraid to make bold moves. His time with the Calgary Flames was marked by blockbuster trades, including the acquisition of Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar in the Matthew Tkachuk deal. Leafs fans hope he brings that same decisiveness to Toronto, especially as the trade deadline looms. Beyond the immediate need for a center, this situation underscores a broader issue with the Leafs roster construction. Depth has been a perennial concern, and while Toronto boasts some of the league's top-end talent, their reliance on a handful of stars has left them vulnerable in moments like this. Moving forward, addressing this imbalance must be a priority for the front office if the team is to achieve sustained success. As the Leafs head into a critical stretch of the season, the next few weeks could define their trajectory.